I'm reviewing Conclave. It's a movie released in 2024. It's directed by Edward Berger, and it stars Ralph Fiennes. It's based on a novel of the same name released in 2016. It follows Ralph Fiennes' character. He is tasked with overseeing the election of a new pope following the death of the most recent one. His character is very dutiful and honorable, and above all, reluctant, not really enjoying the responsibility that's thrust upon him. He's got to play peacemaker among these different personalities and perspectives among the leading candidates. He's got to maintain the integrity of the process and the institution at large. Now, the movie is described as a political thriller. The word thriller to me implies that there's more sinister elements, and that's not really the case. It's more about grounded interpersonal conflict. There's some element of scandals. The real Catholic Church is no stranger to scandal. It is an important element of the story. I would compare it to 12 Angry Men. It has a similar premise in which a group of people of different perspectives and backgrounds, they're grouped together, cut off from the outside world, and they are tasked with coming up with a consensus to determine the outcome of an important result, the fate of a young person who's been accused of murder. In this movie, it's electing the leader of the Catholic Church. Of course, there's no consensus at the beginning, but with each round of voting, you can see the consensus shifting. The general outcome of 12 Angry Men is predictable from the beginning. The entertainment comes in arriving at that result. Conclave is not as predictable, but if you were paying attention early on, you can sense what the general outcome is going to be. And similar to 12 Angry Men, it's really how the movie gets to that point that's interesting. I think a big part of the appeal of this movie, this world of power and influence that most of us will never see, for better or worse. It's similar to the show Succession. I recommend watching that show. The Catholic Church, it almost looks like a corporation the way it's run, and how the cardinals are placed in the fancy-looking hotel, modern-looking hotel within the Vatican. Maybe a more popular piece of fiction that compares to Conclave is Dune Part 2. I watched Conclave in one viewing, in between viewings of Dune Part 2, and I could see the parallels between the Catholic Church with the Bene Gesserit. One is, of course, androcentric, very male-dominated. The Bene Gesserit, on the other hand, is a gynocracy. It's women-dominated. Traditions and values. Initially, watching Dune Part 2, I thought it was so ridiculous, but then watching Conclave, I realized that to someone viewing the Catholic Church and just human traditions and activity in general, they would seem ridiculous to them. A more important parallel between Conclave and Dune Part 2 is the notion of faith and doubt. At one point, Ralph Fiennes' character makes a speech about how faith is made stronger in the presence of doubt, not weaker. We see that theme explored in Dune Part 2, the Fremen, one group that is all in on the prophecy that Paul Atreides is the Messiah, and there's the other group that is more skeptical. Faith and doubt is similar to good and evil in stories. In order for good to be interesting and compelling, there has to be evil that is at the same level of magnitude or higher. The acting is good. The scenery is interesting. I know there's a miniseries, HBO miniseries starring Jude Law as a younger pope, and then several years later they revisited that universe with him as a more established pope. And of course there's Assassin's Creed 2 and Assassin's Creed Brotherhood. Those are my two favorite games in that series that is now at a crossroads. And those two games feature the Catholic Church and the Pope at the time as prominent figures in that story. So we've got like contemporary depictions of the Pope and the Catholic Church, and we've got a Renaissance version. All in all, I do recommend Conclave. I'm surprised at how popular it is among people. Certainly being nominated for Best Picture at the 2025 Oscars has brought more attention to the movie. I wouldn't say that it's a landmark film, but it's interesting, and I recommend, if not watching Succession, then at least watch 12 Angry Men.